For years before the full-scale invasion, Russia set the stage by seizing Crimea in 2014, an unlawful, forceful grab ordered by Vladimir Putin. Analysts have argued over the motive ever since: a blunt assertion of power, the opening move in a wider bid to reclaim lands he considers historically Russian, or a distraction to rally domestic support and bury news of corruption, stagnation, and other troubles. Now a clearer answer has emerged from Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who says he has pieced together what Putin has really been preparing all along. The annexation unfolded in early 2014 after the Revolution of Dignity in Kyiv, where clashes between protesters and state forces culminated in President Viktor Yanukovych's ouster. Russian special forces poured into Crimea, rapidly seizing key sites, parliament buildings included, expelling the sitting authorities and installing a Kremlin-friendly leadership. A rushed, highly disputed referendum followed, with Moscow proclaiming that Crimeans had overwhelmingly voted to join Russia. Most of the world rejected that vote as unconstitutional and a brazen violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. Moscow, unfazed, militarized the peninsula and tightened its grip. In a lengthy address, Putin framed Crimea as eternally Russian, inseparable in people's hearts and minds, and cast Moscow as a protector of threatened residents after the upheaval in Kyiv, Donetsk, Kharkiv, and beyond. He also claimed Ukraine's NATO aspirations risk bringing Allied warships perilously close to Russian shores. Those, he insisted, were the reasons to move in and absorb Crimea. But Putin is a seasoned propagandist who bends reality to suit his goals. We've seen it repeatedly, most recently when he met US President Donald Trump, projecting openness to concessions and a possible peace deal, only to resume large-scale strikes on Ukraine. He knows how to posture for maximum effect abroad and how to wield near-total power at home to manufacture narratives and roll straight into the next scheme. His stated justifications for Crimea cannot be taken at face value. The only way to understand the move is to study what Russia did with the peninsula afterward. No one has watched those moves more closely than Zelenskyy. In a recent interview with the French magazine Le Point, he fielded familiar questions about whether peace might require Ukraine to surrender territories like Crimea. The idea routinely surfaces in ceasefire chatter. Trump even urged Zelenskyy on Truth Social to accept Russia's hold on Crimea and renounce any future NATO bid. Land swap proposals have floated too. Zelenskyy has rejected every such notion, insisting Russia must not be rewarded for aggression and that Moscow needs to hear the word stop. Pressed on whether Ukraine should ever concede Crimea, Donetsk, or Luhansk, Zelenskyy was unequivocal. Those who treat this as a mere territorial dispute fail to grasp Russia's aims and capacity for harm. Territorial integrity is the bedrock of international law. Abandoning it hands the aggressor license to do as it pleases and shatters the conditions for normal life. Land isn't just land, it is homes, graves of ancestors, schools and children, the settings of history, cinema, and poetry. Russia, he said, has tried to erase identity and rewrite the past. Ukraine is fighting for its people and its story, not just for lines on a map. Asked how to persuade distant Europeans that they too are at risk if Putin succeeds, Zelenskyy offered his core insight: Crimea was a springboard. The invasion of the peninsula and simultaneously parts of the east in 2014 was meant to encircle Ukraine's south and pave the way for further offensives. If Ukraine were to withdraw from Donbas, which he stressed will not happen, it would expose Kharkiv, a city of 1.5 million, and open the door to the seizure of Dnipro, Ukraine's industrial powerhouse. Events since 2014 support this view. Russia swiftly entrenched itself in Crimea, basing the 43rd Independent Naval Assault Aviation Regiment at Saki with Su-24M bombers and Su-30SM fighters, among other assets. After launching the full-scale invasion in 2022, the Kremlin put Crimean airfields like Saki and Belbek to work as launchpads for bomb and missile strikes against Ukrainian cities and frontline positions. Drones flew from Crimean sites into southern and central Ukraine. A civilian airport was even converted into a stealth drone hub with storage and camouflage tents for sustained attacks. Under Crimea's shield, Russia's Black Sea Fleet operated from Sevastopol, firing caliber cruise missiles and attempting naval blockades near Odessa. The Kerch Strait Bridge turned the peninsula into a vital logistics artery linking to Russia proper, moving supplies and personnel both ways. Moscow poured top-tier systems into Crimea, advanced air defenses such as the S-500 and powerful radar complexes, underscoring the peninsula's centrality to the war effort. Without Crimea, Russia would have struggled to dominate the Black Sea and Sea of Azov, to rain missiles on Ukraine's south or to stage large southern offensives into Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. It would have been forced to attack primarily from the east via Luhansk and Donetsk instead. Thanks to Crimea's tactical advantages, Russia now holds roughly three-quarters of Kherson and Zaporizhzhia combined, plus most of Luhansk and Donetsk, about one-fifth of Ukraine's territory overall. Was this a meticulously plotted long game? It's plausible. For years, reports and rumors have pointed to Putin's ambitions to expand Russia's footprint, even reabsorbing former Soviet republics. Executing such designs requires patience and careful staging. Seize Crimea amid Ukraine's 2014 turmoil, inflame separatism in Donbas, build forces and infrastructure, and then strike nationwide in 2022. Contemporaneous voices back this interpretation. Gleb Pavlovsky, once a close advisor turned critic, said the annexation was an elaborately prepared plan. GRU special forces don't deploy abroad without one, and its smooth execution implied years of general staff planning. Another critic, Gennady Gudkov, argued that Putin seeks to enter history as the restorer of lost territories. Putin himself mused about Novorossiya shortly after the annexation, invoking eastern Ukrainian regions and Tsarist-era borders. Novaya Gazeta reported a leaked Kremlin memo indicating plans not only to annex Crimea, but to push further into eastern and southern Ukraine mere weeks before the March 2014 move. Taken together, the evidence suggests Crimea was never the end state, it was the launchpad. Zelenskyy warns that the plan may extend beyond Ukraine to Europe itself. If Putin overran Ukraine, he says, he could use it the same way, as a springboard, depending on Europe's strength or weakness. Moscow lies less than 3,000 kilometers from Paris. Russian missiles striking Ukraine already fly 2,500 kilometers, and both sides are fielding systems with 3,000-kilometer ranges. In 2 years, Zelenskyy cautions, Russia could possess many missiles with 5,000-kilometer reach, and Ukraine could too, rendering seas and oceans poor shields in a missile age. That is why Ukraine urges its allies to keep tightening sanctions and hitting the machinery of war. Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha has reiterated that Russia's goals remain unchanged and its readiness for real talks is absent. Severe new measures are needed to sober Moscow. Inside Russia, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov demands global recognition of the annexed territories. Putin, meanwhile, struck a confident tone in Beijing alongside Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un, claiming gains on every front and vowing to press on militarily unless Ukraine accepts a deal. No peace accord, no let-up. The costs are staggering already. Around 1 million Russian casualties, tens of thousands of vehicles and major systems destroyed, mounting economic strain, daily life growing harsher for ordinary Russians. Yet none of this has compelled Putin to stop. Ukraine, for its part, continues to hold the line, shooting down drones and missiles, rebuffing assault waves, conducting deep strikes on Russian soil, and hitting military infrastructure across Crimea, destroying bombers, crippling bases, and loosening Russia's grip. Zelenskyy shows no sign of conceding any territory, a stance that complicates near-term diplomacy and risks a grinding stalemate without a clear victor or viable deal. Unless something shifts dramatically, the war's end still feels distant. That is why many Ukrainians call for even tougher sanctions and stronger resolve in Europe, and why understanding Crimea as a springboard matters for grasping both the past and the peril that could come next.